Hello again, fight fans. I am Jason Burgos, and for this edition of Back Talk, I am joined by one of the top prospects in one championship, who will always have a target on her back because of the brand recognition of her name. On April 28th, she returns to action after a year and a half away to face Sovan Ari M at 1 on TNT4. And that talented woman I speak of is the one and only Colbey Northcutt Daniels, Mrs. CND. Thank you for the time you returned to fighting.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I look forward to speaking with you.
Now, I have a bunch of questions, so I'll
all right.
Right into it. Considering you and your family's long history of martial arts and being, married to a talented striker like Raymond Daniels, being a good striker is a given for you in this MMA game. So most observers wondered going into even your pro debut years back and then your one debut about your ground game, which you got to show off in the first round of your fight with Padme. You pulled guard into guillotine, had an armbar, had a triangle choke. Those didn't end up in finishes. When the round ends, was there like confusion on your part why you couldn't get those submissions? Were you frustrated thinking, damn, how cool would it have been to get a first round sub in this debut? And did your corner like point out what you might have done wrong technically in those moments?
No, they didn't point it out because they didn't want to, worry me about what went wrong. They wanted me to focus on what to do next. So, I mean, yeah, if you're a natural competitor, like everybody is in an MMA fight, it is a little discouraging when you don't actually get the sub. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, this is it. It's over. I had her dazed in the first maybe minute or so, and I got super aggressive. And that's before that whole sequence of when I did pull guard with that guillotine. I've got a couple guillotine finishes as an amateur, a few of them even standing. So that's something that, being naturally a taller fighter, their head's always right here. So the neck's always open. So I went for that. Obviously, it didn't work. There are some things that went back and obviously looked at the tape that I could definitely work on. But I have been focusing a lot on my ground, my jiu-jitsu, specifically my wrestling and cage work. But, from my pro debut to that fight, it was about a span of about 2.5 years. So I feel like finishing her right off the bat in that first minute or two wouldn't have given me the experience that I actually needed to grow as a fighter. I'm very grateful that that happened the way that it did, that I got to go that 15 minutes and kind of get to show everybody that I am more than just a striker. Yes, I didn't get the finish or the submission, but I do have a little bit up my sleeve that not many people would know. So, disappointed that I didn't finish. Yes, but, grateful at the same time.
And people will watch that fight because after that first round, the second, third round mostly took place on the feet. You were clearly head and shoulders better than her. And then, some people that don't understand things will probably look at it and go, oh, she's beating her up. Oh, she didn't finish her. That's not a great win. But this is only your second fight, pro fight, after, like you mentioned, 2.5 years away. So, and like along with all the things you just mentioned in terms of what the positives for you were, what were the positives on a mental level in that you're beating this girl up? Yeah. She is not going away. Very durable, very tough. Yeah. Like, what were the lessons learned from that in terms of, keeping focus and not, losing confidence despite doing all these things right?
Yeah, there's a lot to that question because obviously, like you stated, that was only my second fight. So for me, the experience was the number one thing that I gained from that. That was my first time going the full 15 minutes after a 2.5-year layoff. That was huge. There was, obviously a little bit of ring rust and I'm fighting in a new organization in a new country in the biggest crowd that I've ever fought in my life. So, after the fact, yes, when I overanalyze everything, I'm like, initially the response was, man, I felt great. I looked awesome on the feet. I got to try new things. But then the competitor in me was like, man, I should have finished her. She was super tough and really durable. I had been training for weeks and weeks up to that fight, and I had actually gone through 2 prior opponents before Putri Padme accepted all through. She was super tough and accepted it on about maybe 3 weeks notice. So I knew that she was game. But man, I was throwing everything that I had in my mind at her. She was tough. I thought I was going to knock her out too. So, I'm grateful for that entire experience. I needed that time in the ring to grow as a fighter mentally, physically, and everything. And being my second pro fight, I think that was tremendous for me. So I'm happy with how it turned out.
I spoke with you before your one debut, and we talked about how it was how it was like 2.5 years, break between that stuff. Now, because of this pandemic, you don't have to wait. You didn't have to wait 2 years, but it's still another long wait, a year and a half and stuff like that. I've learned from fighters how that time between bookings can be a great time of growth and technique. However, those were veteran fighters who had tons of fight minutes under their belt. You are in a position where minutes in the cage are still very important in your development, your continued development. Can you go into this fight and kind of showcase some of the tools you've added to the toolbox in the time again? Or do you need to be a little apprehensive and not show too much? Make sure your fundamentals are as sharp as possible, since M has an experience advantage on your third fight, and she could take advantage of that if you get loose on the fundamentals, that are so important. Do you have to kind of, take it back a little bit just to make sure you do everything you need to do right? Because we're still new for you.
No, you're exactly right. I think fundamentals are the building blocks for any kind of sport. So when you go back to ground zero in those fundamentals, I think the fundamentals are what's going to win you the fight ultimately. So yeah, that year and a half, I wish I would have fought sooner. I was actually scheduled to fight last March of 2020, right before COVID happened, but obviously that fell through. So this layoff time period is not something that I would have wanted, but it was a really great growth period as well. I was able to focus on myself, drill and practice things that I needed to work on. And I think that I'm obviously going to be ready for Savannah. She is, I think, the complete opposite stylistically of what I am as a fighter. Height-wise, stylistically, I'm more of a striker, want to keep her at my distance and reach. Everybody observing will see this. And then if you have the shorter grappler, wrestler type fighter, what are they going to do? They're going to try to get on the inside, take you down. That's exactly what she demonstrated her last fight in January. Just 2 months ago, she had a fight against Choi, who was a, my height kickboxer, and basically laid out the game plan of what I believe she will do to me, and what I believe any other shorter fighter would do to me. It's all going to be basically the same. So the time period, I think, benefited me and helped me grow more as a fighter than it did, hinder me in any way. And I'm definitely going to be ready for this one. I'm very excited. It's been a long time coming.
Now, I have two questions related to the weight classes you could be competing at now and in the future. But first, for your one debut, you weighed in at 60 kilograms, which is about 133 in pounds, stuff like that. Now, one doesn't have quite the same depth and focus for that weight in the three sports that they feature. They don't even have rankings after Adam strawweight in MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing. To get into one of those glamour divisions eventually down the line as you continue to grow and develop and compete with their stars, could you even at all make the 56.7 kilos limit for their strawweight, or is the hope they continue to develop flyweight in your time there to the level that the other divisions have been developed?
That's a great question, actually. Nobody's ever actually asked me that. I don't believe I can make the 56 kilograms hydrated. That is obviously a really big thing that one does, is take care of their fighters, and they put the health and safety of their fighters first. I am very tall, but I walk around naturally very lean and very thin. So my walking weight pretty much is barely a couple pounds over what my weigh-in weight is. But because of my height, I cannot physically make that walking around weight and still be hydrated. I could probably cut there, but it's not safe for me to do so. That being said, when I first signed with one, I was very well aware that they really didn't have a flyweight division. But I do believe their goal, and what my goal is to help grow that division. So my goal right now is they don't have a flyweight one MMA women's champ. And I'm hoping that they would want to use me to grow that division. And then that would be the goal for me to become the very first women's flyweight MMA champ. So no, can't make straw weight, but I'm hoping that they will like my performances enough to kind of want to grow with me in my career.
Was that ever like a thought when you talked with Chatri? Obviously, the connection with your brother Sage, but even without that, you have a distinguished martial arts background, stuff like that. And I remember reading, talking about. I think you told me too when you went there with Sage to an event. He started talking with them and pretty much signed you then and there. Was the idea always when he pitched it to you, like, look, I'd like you to sign here, with the idea of hopefully developing it around you, or it was more like, look, I think you're skilled. I want to give you an opportunity on this platform.
It was a little bit of both. I mean, you go look at the champ, Angela Lee, I'll use her as an example, started off from the very beginning with one right off the bat from her pro debut moving forward. So one is growing, and look, they're breaking the U.S. market now. And I think me being a U.S. fighter is beneficial too, because yes, the Northcutt name does carry something, like you had stated earlier. But I think that, they are willing to work with me to not only expand the U.S. market, like they have signed other U.S. fighters, but obviously to grow the promotion too. And to grow that flyweight division would be a huge opportunity for me to help do so. Like, the UFC started off, only with bantamweight women. Then they went down to 115 and then now 125 and 45. So we're always growing and expanding. So it's just a matter of time. And then, it's like, if you build it, they will come. When you create a division, it's like more fighters will come out of the woodwork, and then the division will eventually grow. So, there's not a lot of women at the flyweight weight class right now, but I'm hoping that when it starts to gain more traction, more women will become interested and start stepping forward.
I mean, and you just turned, I believe you just turned 28. So happy belated birthday to you. And weight cutting gets harder as we get older. And luckily, one, you don't have to do too much, but also even for women, weight cutting in general was harder because of your size. And, maybe people will look at you and go, oh man, she could put more on her body. She could beef up a little bit if she wanted to. Is eventually like bantamweight in one, something you've thought about? And like, assuming they can't, develop on the level you have to, and you want to live up to your hopeful potential, want those big fights, will it force you to think about having to go back to the U.S. on some level, even be it bantamweight or flyweight? If they can't do it, within the next 2 years, you got to think about coming back to the U.S.
I mean, naturally, you've seen my brother with my genetics. My frame is just very tall and kind of lanky and thin. I've tried putting on size before. It's a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. And I have fought at heavier weights. And I have, unfortunately, like my pro debut, like you stated earlier, that was a mistake, fighting up a little bit heavier. So just because of my frame, right now, I don't think that's the best for me. People look at me height wise and think, oh yeah, you could fight up in bantamweight hydrated, or, if it wasn't hydrated, another promotion, be a featherweight. It's like, no, Chris Cyborg and those girls are really, really big.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm tall, but when you see me, I mean, I'm not very big framed. So I think that the flyweight being hydrated is honestly, it's perfect for me, because even at bantamweight, cutting weight to 135 here in the US is like, those women are still pretty large too. You go look at like Misha or Rhonda, they're thick. I mean, that's not my build. So I'm very happy with where I'm at. And the hopes right now is to just let me stay here and grow. Obviously, if they say, hey, this isn't working out, then I will cross that bridge when I get to it. But I'm not even looking at that right now.
Going back to the idea we mentioned before, the Northcutt name and the brand of it and stuff like that, because your social is Colbey Northcutt, but when you kind of go to the social, it's Colbey Northcutt Daniels because of your husband and stuff like that.
Right.
Was it like a clear decision? No disrespect to you, hun, but this brand is so important, and I'm trying to build off of Sage's. I already helped build off it, our family and everything like that. Is it kind of almost like, look, I am Colbey Northcutt Daniels, but in this performance world that is fighting entertainment, I need to be Colbey Northcutt? Was that ever like a conversation?
To be honest, that wasn't really like a decision that I feel like I made for myself, because I signed with one before I was married. So I got married in August of 2019, signed with one right before that happened. So when I signed everything, I was just Colbey Northcutt, got married in August, had my pro debut. When you're filling out all the paperwork and saying, nickname, what do you want to be announced as? I put Daniels down. They did not do it. That's okay. I don't know if they're wanting to keep that relationship with my, my brother, and just easier. Plus it's a long name and I understand that.
Yeah.
But no, I did want to, obviously I'm proud to be married to my husband. He is the greatest striker in all of kickboxing, mixed martial arts, in my opinion, and several others in history. So I'm obviously proud to be Daniels, but I don't know the reason why they didn't announce it and want me to take the last name Daniels. Maybe it was just too long, mouthful, I'm not really sure. But they kept me as Northcutt, even though I did say that. Just like Angela Lee. Angela Lee, she still goes by her, maiden name Lee.
True.
The Lee Pucci. Or I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but maybe it's just for branding representation. I'm not sure.
When it was announced for that debut and it wasn't Daniels, did Raven go, "Where's Daniel?"
No, he is so sweet and so understanding. He does not get mad at anything whatsoever. So when we were kind of going through the walkthroughs the day before the fight, we kind of knew ahead of time that that's what they were going to announce, stuff like that. So it wasn't any kind of shock to us, and he's very understanding and didn't bother him.
So let's talk about this fight coming up with Em. She offers another important development test in terms of her grappling. She has shown to be a grinder when it comes to the ground game. I spoke with Eric Nixick, Francis Ngannou's coach, a couple weeks ago, and he talked about how the best way to improve Francis's wrestling was to just straight up throw him in the deep end with the wrestling and do a ton of wrestling training, and it looked pretty good in the title fight. Yeah. I know you are a purple belt in BJJ, I believe,
right?
But in preparation for Em, has a large part of this camp been focused specifically on grappling? And have you been working with anyone specific that can mirror her style or just, in general?
Absolutely. So yes, I feel like wrestling is the one piece of my MMA that I feel like wrestling, and then the cage work is something that I really have been focusing on for this camp. When I'm back home in Orange County and I'm with the training lab, all of my wrestling is focused on is with Mark Munoz, who is the head coach of the training lab over there. And then when I'm up here in Sacramento, I'm obviously at an all wrestling camp being here at Alpha Male. So that's very heavily practiced as well. So I do feel confident in my jiu-jitsu, and I obviously feel confident in my striking. So it's just kind of piecing all those things together, because I feel like if you have good wrestling, that is kind of like the dictator in the fight. It can control the fight in every situation, and that's what Savannah is good at. So it's, it's working the wrestling, but it's also the anti-wrestling, because I want to be on my feet. So the people that I've been working with obviously have been giving me really great looks, and I feel very prepared, and I feel very ready for what I feel like she's going to be throwing at me.
Talk to me about, because for people that know training lab, most people know Alpha Male by this point too, both elite gyms, where you can kind of get all you wanted there. Why do the two? Because I forgot who I was talking to, but they were mentioning the point about if you get different coaches, like your coaches is not in your corner, you're used to a certain voice, even when it comes to training sometimes. Why mix it up, and why not just be all Alpha Male or training lab, which would be understandable?
Great question. My last fight, I was all training lab. Okay. However, COVID has kind of thrown a monkey wrench. So because of COVID, a lot of the gym situations that we have in Southern California are shut down. And a lot of people, unfortunately, that are in the training lab circle, training partners and family members got really sick. So the size of the training partners haven't been what I feel like I need specifically to get ready to fight. And Alpha Male, obviously it offered my brother. He's up here, so it made it a very easy decision. He was like, just come up here. There's tons of bodies, tons of different people who he looks. So that's predominantly the reason why I decided to come up here, because Mark Munoz is obviously, one of the best, in especially wrestling. So that was awesome. But he's also a lot bigger than I am. I need bodies and looks that will replicate Savannah. And Alpha Male had that. So it was easy because Sage already is up here in Sacramento and already has a place. And it was obviously easy because we're on the same card training together. So it kind of made sense we've been doing like every other week for the past 10, 12 weeks or so. I'm up here, go back home. I would be here full time, predominantly if I if I could. However, the training lab also offers Sam Calavita, who is my strength conditioning and nutrition coach.
Yep.
He kind of is the mastermind behind
Yes.
every single thing that makes me a super awesome athlete and confidence in my cardio, strength, conditioning. So I go home to work with him. And then also my husband and I, we do own our own business as well. So we do have a karate school. So being away from that really long period of time isn't the best, especially with COVID right now. And we're trying to like pick it back up off the ground. We had to shut down for a good period of time last year. But this camp up here and everything at Alpha Male is fantastic. Uriah is an incredible teacher. Chris Holdsworth, incredible. Everybody here is just awesome. And they're so helpful. And I'm getting really great looks and bodies, which I really appreciate.
Is it almost then fortuitous, not that any pandemic is fortuitous, but that you are on the same card with Sage and the situation sort of forced you to have to train together? So you're training together for this fight together, maybe when you wouldn't have. And is there any Colbey Sage sparring sessions in Alpha Male? And is there any video of it?
Oh, that's funny. No to the sparring sessions. Obviously, Sage is a lot bigger than Savannah, and I'm not going to go give him Virginia Aoki. We do a lot together and drill a lot together, and obviously in the same practices together and everything. But to be honest, if COVID didn't happen, I don't really know if I would actually be up here for this camp, because it's like, what's not broken, don't fix it. So I was in a training lab, and not to say that anything there was broken, but everybody is kind of taking care of their own safety and their own health first. So a lot of people are not in practices that normally would be there because they have family and loved ones that they have to look out for, and they can't go get mom, dad, brother, sister, or son or daughter sick. So if COVID didn't happen, I probably wouldn't be up here, but it is a really great blessing in disguise for me, because I feel like I've actually grown a whole lot as a fighter being up here, that if I would have stayed at home under these circumstances, I probably would have not have gotten. So it worked out better, in my opinion.
Last question. And when I spoke to Sage a few months back, and he talked about he wanted to have a busy year, considering for you, you've only fought once for almost the better part of 4 years. If you don't get 3 or 4 fights this year, would it be a disappointment?
Absolutely. I mean, I wanted to fight March of 2020, was planning to fight 3 times last year at minimum. Staying in shape obviously is not a problem, but I do need to be active. I'm now 28, so it's not like I'm in my lower 20s anymore, have all these years to grow. I know that several years down the line, I do want to be a mom and have other things that I want to focus on in the future. So I want to stay as active as possible. If I can fight 3-4 times this year, bring it on. I'm ready for it. I'm always in shape and can go. So yeah, I mean, the 1.5 year kind of thing wasn't something that I was super grateful for initially, but I did get to learn a lot and grow a lot. And then it makes it even better that, the timing worked out too, that I get to fight with Sage. So I'm happy with that.
All right.